Siths and Jedis, Padawans and Masters, welcome to Sith Heads, the podcast about Star Wars, as you may have guessed. Today, I'm Jason. Not today I'm Jason, but I am Jason. I am joined by Mike. Go ahead and
hey guys.
And Brian.
Salutations.
All right, so we have, this is the first one, right? There's a little bit of growing pains, I guess we could call them, growing pains. So that was all on the fly, and maybe we'll do it different next time.
Will you be Jason next time?
I will be today, Jason. I won't be
Okay.
today, Jason. I'll be Jason, and then today.
Tomorrow, Jason?
Tomorrow,
But I feel
Jason.
that today you are today, Jason.
Then I guess next time I'll be...
Yesterday,
Tomorrow,
Jason?
Jason.
No, but won't I be... Well, I'd be today, Jason, if it were tomorrow, but tomorrow I would be... Anyway. So...
Is this about time travel or Star Wars? I'm
Uh,
confused.
thankfully, it's not about Star Trek, which heavily leans on time travel. But to be fair, there is some speculation that there's time travel from Rebels with Ahsoka and all of that stuff, right? So I guess we can't just say that time travels for Star Trek anymore and make fun of it that way. It's for
Everybody
everyone.
time travels. Time travel is in everything.
It's a sci-fi
There was-
staple.
Yeah, there was like time travel in Game of Thrones, right?
Oh, stop! That was bad writing. That's not real time travel.
Well, whatever. Seemed like time travel.
What is real time travel?
Well, I guess fair. It wasn't implied time travel. It was just someone who was.
It didn't
somewhere they
follow
shouldn't
the
have been
rules
that
of the
fast.
DeLorean. That's bullshit.
Well, listen, I feel like the mention of bad writing is a wonderful segue into our discussion of Star Wars.
Oh.
Oh, what?
Shots
Oh,
fired.
what?
Shots fired.
Let me
All right,
tell
all right.
you, there is
Why
quite a
did we
bit to
invite a
discuss.
Trekkie to this?
Well, before we get into talking shit about Star Wars, let's talk about a little bit of Star Wars news.
Yes.
So I'm sure you all have heard that Ahsoka was cast in live action. Rosario Dawson has got the nod to play Ahsoka as a
Mhm.
person. What do we think about this?
Oh, I love Rosario Dawson. I don't
Do-
know. I don't know that I could ever get tired of looking at Rosario Dawson, and I don't know that I oppose them painting her orange. So I'm cool with this.
I thought I was not expecting this from Brian. I thought he was going to be so
Against it?
angry. Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
I thought,
No, I knew that-
I'm for it. I'm actually kind of excited for it. Now, one thing I did read is that she has a lawsuit against her and her family for supposedly she has help around the house, a handyman around the house, and who is a transgender man, and her family physically and verbally abused him. And
What?
There's a lawsuit against her family for this. So
Oh.
I read that and I'm like, ooh, but it's still in court, so I will hold my opinions to myself. I hope
Well,
she didn't do that.
and
And
it's
she
Should
Innocent-
she
did do
have
innocent
that.
until
anything to do
proven
with this?
guilty.
Yeah.
Because the actions of her family should not be held against Rosario Dawson. She's just
She was part of it,
Oh man.
which is weird because she's a big LGBTQ plus person, right?
Maybe
And she has come out as bisexual herself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes Brian like the casting even more.
The casting is fantastic. It is. Well, hold on.
She
Let's-
kind of looks like Ahsoka. If you look
Right.
at
She
Ahsoka
does.
in
She looks
Rebels,
like her.
she does look a surprising amount like grown up Ahsoka.
She does. They both have similar facial structures. She's not, she's not just kind of like a D-list actress. She's fairly talented.
Mhm.
She's been in some pretty respectable, films and television shows. I don't think it's bad casting. So here's the concern with casting like this for me. Is she too big? Is it better to put a well-known actress or actor in a role of a character that's never had live action, or is it better to take an unknown and put them in that role? I don't know that going with a celebrity is the right choice here.
So I guess that goes a little bit to my argument, and it's not an argument. I understand this is a really rare situation, right? For someone to be cast in live action after only and exclusively being animated. So
Right.
it was only ever voice acted. It's never been live action. It's never been anything but this. So you have someone who's been established in Clone Wars and Rebels, across everything. Her voice was in the last Star Wars movie. Like I think her name is Ashley Eckstein, right? I wrote it down. I'm fairly certain.
I believe
Ashley
that's true.
Eckstein. She's played Ahsoka from her inception, right? Dave Filoni created Ahsoka for Clone Wars.
Right.
And she's done it the whole time. Every time there's ever been an Ahsoka, it's been her. So to me, that voice, as much as the image of that character is Ahsoka, the voice is Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I get that we bounce from live action to animated all the time and stuff, especially in Star Wars. Palpatine's been voiced by at least 3 different people.
Sure,
And
as
Clone
Darth
Wars and
Vader
whatever
and
else.
some of
Yeah.
the Obi-Wan Kenobi. And,
So I get it, and it's not the end of the world, but I guess I would be disappointed if they didn't like give her a shot. And I don't know that, but like I would expect that if they had an open cast, well, not an open casting for it, but if they cast it and did auditions, like I hope you gave her a shot.
Mhm.
Because I mean, does she look as much like her as Rosario Dawson? No, definitely not.
No,
But
I'd say not.
but her voice is Ahsoka, so
That's
that
true.
goes a long way for it. So that's kind of how I feel about it personally.
My thing is I still have to watch the Mandalorian series.
I'm
right
sorry.
now-
Is it not April of 2020? You haven't seen the Mandalorian?
Here's my problem: is that I wasn't excited when they first wrote it. I'm more excited for something that's probably not going to come for 4 more years because of COVID with Obi-Wan series. Like
Oh.
that's what I want. I'm so excited for that. I wasn't excited for Mandalorian, and after everybody watched it, nobody got me excited for it.
It's literally
So-
the best thing Disney's brought to the table.
Well, oh boy, Disney Plus. There's a lot there too.
No,
Well,
I'm
no. And
no.
Disney-
I'm talking Disney. Period.
Oh, Disney. Okay.
Disney, Star Wars, Mandalorian is the strongest thing that they've brought to the table in my opinion.
Anyways,
I
don't.
well,
This is a long that's a whole nother
yeah,
thing.
we
I
need
don't
to
wanna
have
go
we
down
need to have a Disney discussion on a different day because we'll talk about that for an hour.
Yeah. So, why do we have to bring Ahsoka into this?
Because they like connecting pieces. I don't
And that's
know.
my problem. Is like, are we doing this because there's a point, or are we like, hey, we really got to make everybody know that Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and everything's going on, so let's bring this character here, so they're like, oh yeah, the Skywalker's legacy's going on at the same time.
Well, canonically, it makes of all the people to run into out in the world, Ahsoka is one of them, right? Rebels. So I'll explain. Did we all watched Rebels, right?
Of course.
Finished it.
Yep.
Okay. So at the end of Rebels, Ahsoka goes off across the universe looking for Ezra, because Ezra got pulled in with Thrawn and whatever else, and is just gone, right? So it theoretically makes sense to include a character that doesn't have the strongest ties to the saga as far as like the films are concerned, right?
Mhm.
She is just a Clone Wars and Rebels creation. So she's like a low stakes character as far as the overarching Star Wars fandom is concerned. And it makes sense for her to be out and about. If you run into her, she becomes a character that has a 2-episode arc, and that's fine.
But any one of those characters from Rebels has the same. They're all looking for Ezra. Now she was dragged into it, right? So she's going to find him, but there are other characters.
We don't know that any of those people
Well-
survived through Return of the Jedi.
Right.
No,
That's
yeah.
the problem, right? And it's fine. They might have.
But I
they
guess
might
what I'm
not.
saying, they might have, and you don't have this definitive tie to the Skywalker lineage.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So you
Mhm.
can add characters that don't have that tie and build a different lore. Right now, Ahsoka has that tie. There is that connection, always and forever.
But I guess the thing right now is this is post Darth Vader being dead, right? Post Fall of the Empire. Vader's dead in
Yeah.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's going to be like, well, my old master Annie. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like she's just, or Sky Guy, whatever she called. Do you remember she called him that in like the first season of Clone Wars? It was the worst.
Yeah, it was terrible, but it got better.
You don't need that, right? You don't need that to be part of Ahsoka's defining character. I get what you're saying, Mike, that she's definitely tied to it, but I don't think that that's going to pull focus because every link she had to it is gone.
I swear to God, I guarantee when they do it in her first, I don't know how many series she's contracted to, if it's just one or two or whatever, but whether it's her first or second episode in this, she's going to reference Darth Vader and her connection to him. I guarantee it.
Oh, no doubt. And you know, I think that's part of it. It's sort of fan servicey. They did that a little bit in season 1 of The Mandalorian. I mean, you wouldn't know since you haven't taken 4 hours to watch the damn thing, but but there was an episode that was just filled with fan service, the Mos Eisley Cantina episode, and I feel like it would be something along the lines of that, right? But again, I think that the bigger question is: are you going to be focused on the fact that it's Ahsoka, or is it going to be the Rosario Dawson show? Because I will tell you this, in its experience from season 1, there was an episode that featured Bill Burr as a character. Now listen, I love Bill Burr. He's very funny. I'm a big Bill Burr supporter. He's the guy who ordered the Sam Jackson beer on the Chappelle Show. I cannot be mad at Bill Burr. But that was not Bill Burr playing a character on a Star Wars show. That was Bill Burr on a Star Wars show.
That was Bill Burr being Bill Burr. It was bad. It was as bad as the episode of Trek with fucking Costanza in it.
Absolutely.
It was every bit as bad as that.
It's just, and that is the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because the best characters in The Mandalorian are the ones who you don't know who the actor is, or you're really not familiar. And yeah, Pedro Pascal is the lead, but he's got a mask on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he doesn't talk really.
Right.
He's pretty low on dialogue. So, all right. So we're up in the air. If I agree kind of with both things, if she pulls too much focus, it'll be bad. If she spends all her time fucking referencing Clone Wars, Vader, Anakin, whatever, it'll also probably be bad. If both of those things are downplayed in the way that she's written, I'm all for Rosario Dawson playing Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to see.
She's kind of taken on that mantle, sort of in the capacity that Kevin Smith did, where like she sort of like merged her way into the world of nerddom, and much like Kevin Smith like bears the crown of King of the Nerds, she's like the female version of that, right?
Well, and she got into it through him, right? Because she was in Clerks 2, and then she's been in Daredevil as night nurse, right?
Yep. Oh, she was in every one of those shows.
Yeah. And now she's in Star Wars. So she's basically in every nerdy Disney thing that Disney owns at this point. So
it's true. Yeah.
But good for her. Get work when you can get it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Before she gets furloughed.
So next little piece of news that we talked about that long, and I thought we were going to talk about that. I thought we were going to get a boo. And
We don't do anything short.
You guys have both seen, I know neither of you are quite the helmet person that I am as far as collecting and what have you, but you've both seen pictures of this Black Series Boba Fett helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I can't imagine it being any better. That's the only one they fucked up. I don't know if you guys ever saw the Vader helmet. That Vader helmet was wonky looking.
Yeah.
But every helmet Hasbro has made as Black Series has got better than the one before it.
So I've never purchased one of these helmets. Can you wear this? I'm not saying could I squeeze it over my giant melon, but can the average human that wasn't conceived outside of Chernobyl put this on?
So this is not a Hasbro one, but it's about the same size as Hasbro, right?
Okay, sure.
It's the one that I painted myself. I'm going to take my headphones off so I can put it on my dome.
I mean, it's perfect. I could swear that you were Boba Fett from the holiday special.
Right? Perfect. So,
yeah.
I can't believe that's the helmet he painted.
That's a cool helmet.
Yeah. So, I'm far away from it, trying not to break all my shit. They make them not for your giant dome.
No.
I have a rather big head and I'm pushing it in some of the helmets, but for the most part, they're not made for kids. As much as they're like marketed as a toy, as part of like this Black Series whatever line, like they're pretty legitimate. The paint's getting better. That's the Stormtrooper helmet was pretty great, right? It had like that little thing on the back for batteries, which was kind of a bummer, but overall it was really well done. But that helmet. If they continue to make helmets, they're going to make a Mandalorian one. It's going to be dope.
Yeah, I'm not a helmet. I'm a statue and figures guy. You know this. Not figures, statues.
Yeah, you don't like
Statues
anything
are-
with joints.
Listen,
like
statues are great. I love
They're
statues.
dope.
They're my
They're
favorite of
dope.
all the thing. I think they're the nicest of all the stuff.
So
Yeah.
you've seen that hyperreal. I showed you that hyperreal Vader I had, right? Where it's got like the rubber suit that's supposed to emulate leather, and you can't see any of the joints, and you can pose
Sure,
it wherever
yeah.
you want. Is that
Yep.
an exception?
That's great. Yeah.
Is that a statue, or because it moves, is it a figure?
That's a figure with clothing on.
But
A
is it
statue?
But it's perfect. You saw the picture of it?
It
Yeah.
is. It is.
So is that once it's posed, it's a statue?
I suppose.
No, it's
Yes?
not. It's a
I
figure.
think it's a figure pose.
Statue cannot be moved.
Right.
I don't think that's true. I bet you could find some sideshows that have like limited articulation of things.
Listen.
Is a pop a statue then? Is that what? Or
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah,
the conversation we'll get down?
the head moves.
This is why they have bobbleheads on the pop figures. For this specific reason. It's all about semantics, gentlemen. When Funko first started making the pop figures, the ones that were owned by Disney, the Star Wars and the Marvel ones, they all have bobbleheads. Because if you look into this, they have bobbleheads because the company that owns Marvel and Star Wars classifies what Pop Funko is making as an action figure, and Pop Funko does not have the rights to make an action figure of those specific licensed brands. So that's why you can get like a Batman Pop Funko and it's a figure with no bobblehead. There is not a single Star Wars or a single Marvel Pop Funko that doesn't have a bobblehead, and it's specifically because that would then classify it as an action figure and it breaches the contract.
Do you know that that's actually why all of the Star Wars Black Series helmets are battery operated? The exact same reason.
Really?
Yep. There's one company, and I have to. Oh, it's Anovos. Anovos has the rights to make replica helmets and some replica props for Star Wars. So to get around that, Hasbro has to give some like push button make sound or light up doohickey to make it a toy before they can make reproduction helmets. Because they don't have the license to make reproduction helmets, they have the license to make toys. So that's all part of it. It's so crazy.
Unbelievable. It's so frustrating.
But at any rate, whatever. The helmet looks great. It's coming out. I think it's in May. We can talk about it more once I have it. You guys can put your hands on it or whatever. But
Well,
Oh, baby.
maybe not in May. Maybe not in May. I pre-ordered that thing, and I'm a real big fucking nerd. I pre-ordered that thing like 6 or 7 months ago.
Is it COVID certified? Are you going to be able to wear that around town out in the open?
I'm just gonna have to pirate some sort of N95 mask and put it underneath it.
Oh my
And
god.
I'd have like a sneeze shield.
That's
perfect.
awesome.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the next show that Disney Plus is doing for Star Wars is a show about Cassian Andor from Rogue One. Is that I don't now I'll preface this to the greater world by saying I'm not the biggest Rogue One fan. It's not bad. I just have a hard time going through a movie where I know what the end is going to be. Like all these people are going to die. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the movie that came out 4 years ago or whatever. I have a hard time sitting through it and being like, oh, I'm going to get really attached to these people and their mission. They've got, this person was introduced 45 minutes in. They've got an hour and a half of life left. You better fucking hustle up. Like I'm not a huge fan. But Cassian is the most interesting of them.
I am excited if they do pre-Cassian before he falls in love during Rogue One.
Mike, you can't do a post Rogue One because he's dead.
No, before he falls in love in Rogue One, like he completely changes, right? Like he's this.
Oh, I get
he's
you.
this
His personality type.
His personality type, because he's this agent of the rebellion. I do stuff so the rebellion looks good. I am the guy who gets stuff done. He is the ghost. He is the crypt keeper. He is the assassin. He will do what needs to get done. Right? Every and the new films have been kind of playing this like, oh, you're part of the rebellion. Well, who do you think is buying weapons for me? Both the rebellion and the Empire. You're like, they've been building this up. So if they do a story about how the rebellion is, they do arms deals, they do assassinations. I'm all for it. If they go back against what Cassian's character was at the beginning of Rogue One, and he's this heartfelt, emotional guy that sees the good in everything, because they didn't really play that out. He was a cold-hearted killer. He had a friend at the very beginning that he just killed because he couldn't let his information get out.
So, do you think they're going to start from the beginning with this story? I mean, so here's the deal. Obviously, he bites the dust in Rogue One, right? Mm-hmm. So, anything that we're going to learn about this guy is going to be pre-Rogue One. I mean, it has to be. Otherwise, it's just going to be Rogue One. So, okay, fine. How far back are we going? Is this going to be interesting? Does anyone even want this? So I actually really like Rogue One. I would probably even make the argument that Rogue One is my favorite Disney Star Wars movie. But does anyone care? I mean, obviously, they're going to surround it with a colorful cast of characters, but are people into this?
I mean, K2 is going to be in it, right? K2 was his droid before Rogue One, so that's fascinating to me. I love that assassin droid. That was one of the better parts of the movie.
Agreed.
But to your point, is it Solo or is it something else? Because Solo went so far back and did so much goofy nonsense. And again, this is one man's opinion about what a not great movie Solo was. But if you're making a movie which is essentially Solo for a character no one likes as much as Han Solo, but you're doing an entire series about it, is that a good idea? Or maybe should you have been like, you know what, Ewan, let's figure out this Obi-Wan thing and put that out first. And once we've established two shows that are pretty good, like Mandalorian is I'm not going to go so far as to call it great. It's still young. It had one season of 8 episodes. Mm-hmm. It was good. It was very solidly good. You do a show with Obi-Wan and that one's also good or better. Then you can throw me a Cassian Andor show and I'm like, okay, you know what? You've proven that you know what you're doing with the live action TV stuff. I'll take what you're feeding me with Cassian Andor. But the second one,
is it confirmed that it is starring or is he in it?
It is. I believe it is. I don't know what it's called, but it is Cassian Andor's show, and it already had 6 episodes of pre-production before COVID, and it got shut down early.
So you're right. So I don't know if this is something anybody wants, and it's not a big character. You're right. We had an hour and 50 minutes to get to know and like this character, and then he vanishes off the face of the planet forever. So yes, I hope it helps. We talk about this all the time. My biggest gripe about Star Wars is it never expanded the universe. It was 5 planets in the original. Clone Wars did a really good job when that came out. Even the prequels didn't really expand the universe. It just embellished the ones that already had. So if it expands the universe, if it goes deeper into the inner workings of the black markets, how the rebels functioned and all that stuff, I'm all for it. But you're right. Nobody cares about Cassian. And what that means is that if they start to think like they're losing this show, they're just going to throw characters that everybody loves.
That's what they're going to do.
Fan fiction the crap out of it. And it's like,
oh, look, it's Hera. It's Hera and Ezra in live action.
Here's the thing.
I'm okay with that, but it's not going to be them. It's going to be the R2. It's going to be
Yeah.
C3PO.
Right,
and
low stakes,
Yeah.
very expendable characters they can do
Yes.
willy-nilly with. But I'll tell you what they should do. So you got to test the waters with things like this, with a character like that. You got to see if people are actually going to bite before you give them a whole show. So why not take from from the playbook of one of the greatest Star Wars things that was not the original movies? Let's take a look, and I'm showing my age here, but let's take a look at those EU books from the 90s. Give me an 8-episode show on Disney Plus that's an anthology show. I want the Black Mirror of Star Wars. I want 8 one-hour episodes, all different tales from the world of Star Wars, right? Then you give me a single episode with that character. If it's hot and people like it, then you do the full show, right? You got to test it out.
That would be perfect for them.
You need to pitch that to Disney right now, because you could have one about like just an ATA pilot.
Dude, I'm serious,
you can have one about
they've all exist. So they have a blueprint, right? They have 3: Jabba's Palace, Mos Eisley, and Bounty Hunters, right? Those are the 3 anthology books. You just take 1 or 2 of each of them, and then 2 from wherever the hell else you want.
Mm-hmm.
You call it a season. And you're right. If Bosk is the dopest shit, okay, well, bring him. He didn't die. Bring him into Mandalorian.
Yeah.
He's a low stakes character that nobody knows about from the original movies. Like, he was on the bridge of the ship for 2 seconds while Vader's like, I need him alive. Like, that was it. You never saw him again. Well, I think you saw him in Jabba's palace for like a second, but he was never like a named character in the movie.
Yep.
To me, it feels like Disney is treating TV and movies as comic books, because you can do that with comic books, and they've done it with past Star Wars comic books. Is that they introduce a character in Darth Vader's series, or they'll introduce in Luke, and then they create a side story off that character, and that group of people love it. The problem is I don't think that blueprint works for television and movies.
That's Dr. Aphra.
Because you cannot include the lore that comes with comics into movies. But I guess
that's the thing, though, is that if the complaint is they do too much that everybody already knows, too many things with people too many things with events that have already happened. Dr. Aphra is someone they introduced in the first Vader run, right? Mm-hmm. And then they spun her off into her own comic where she's basically like a space Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, yeah. It was great, though. I liked it.
Right. That's really excellent. And they could do that. That's interesting. And it's not like they don't have to run into Luke, and they don't have to run into Vader, and they don't have to like do all of this stuff with people you already know. They have all new characters, and then she's on her own. And now they started here, but now it's this larger universe.
That is what Disney needs to do. Is their movies need to be the main story. Their TV shows can be side characters, and their comics and novels have to be the lore around that movie. And that's how you break it down. You don't create movie after movie after movie after movie trying to build this up, right? Because you'll never do it justice. You'll never do it.
Someone described the visual dictionary for Rise of Skywalker and the novel as like the video game lore that you would have to go search for in a video game, and the movie is the main game. Where like, the movie was good, it had its whatever, but like if you go off and you get the extra stuff that they didn't have time to put in from the visual dictionary or from the novel or from this comic, all of a sudden the story is way better. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I wish they'd stop doing that, because not your whole audience isn't doing that.
Yeah.
No.
So it's just this ties back into the situation where they explain through one of the novels in their universe what was happening on the Sith homeworld in Rise of the Skywalker. And who is the celebrity that I think it was the guy who played Frodo. Why am I losing this? Elijah Wood posted, how would we ever know that this is what's happening in the film? When they revealed that these Sith people were Palpatine's army that was amassed on the Sith homeworld in another side story. And I think that's part of the problem here is I often feel like they try and backtrack and fill gaps that they accidentally left through these things without organically establishing the world. And that's an example of it. It irks me to no end.
So we're going to roll this into the meat and potatoes of this episode. So we're going to talk about the prequels.
Yes.
And whether our opinion of the prequels has shifted since the sequel trilogy has come to term.
I love defending the prequels. I'm getting on my soapbox. I'm getting it out.
So give me 1 second. So
Calm down.
that I think you can go into. In the 90s, they did have books, but they had books like where, oh, you remember the green Jedi with the dreadlocks, Kit Fisto? He's got a book where he's like using his lightsaber underwater. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's just like a completely isolated story that's off to this side that you don't have to know. It's just coloring in the greater world, like you were saying. The Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi and all of that, some of these things severely impact your ability to understand and follow the story in the way it was intended. I think that's my biggest problem with the sequel trilogy. Brian, go ahead and defend your prequels.
Listen,
We'll discuss.
Right. Here's the deal. The original Star Wars films are just so marvelous. Everybody loves these, right? We grew up with them. I feel like I have seen each of those movies 15 to 20 plus times. I know when people are going to deliver their lines. I know sound effects. I know everything. They're in my soul, my core of like my upbringing, right? So they hold a special place with everybody. So everyone wants whatever's coming to live up to this. Understandably so. Who doesn't want a nice rush of serotonin? But that's not what's necessarily always going to happen. So then the prequels in the 90s dropped, right? And they were met with a ton of hate. I have spent many a year of my life hating on the prequels. The laughable bullshit that they put on the screen, how they aged so terribly, how the special effects are so heinous. And I thought, well, that sucks and it's not going to get worse than this. But then I was introduced with another trilogy of films from Disney. And I must say that from a cohesive storytelling standpoint, from a structural standpoint, from a hero's journey standpoint, how any good story is written, those prequel films had the organization, the storytelling beats, they had the character development. It just was marred by stupid special effects and bad acting because everyone was trying to make believe they were in outer space while they were in a neon green room.
Yeah, they did. The entire movie was basically built on blue screen.
It affects, their ability to convey realism in their acting. So they sound stupid, and they have some stupid lines. Oh, the sand is coarse, it hurts me, or whatever, But these films Disney's made, they're written by different people. They're directed by people with different fundamental beliefs of how the story's supposed to be told. The writers of these films are going on social media and arguing with each other about how it should have been told. They're retconning the previous guy's decisions. They're straight fucking the fans, in my opinion. So from a storytelling standpoint, not a visual cinematic standpoint, I get it, but from a storytelling standpoint, the prequels are vastly superior to the new films because they at least fucking make sense, even if they're stupid.
Okay, so you are of the opinion that the prequels, you have a newfound appreciation for the prequels post-sequel trilogy.
Yeah,
Michael,
and I'm gonna drop one more nugget of terrible opinion on you all before I allow this to be yours. I think that the Phantom Menace is the best of the prequels.
Which
Boom.
is wrong.
That's
incredibly wrong.
So wrong. No, I'm not.
Right. Before we get into Mike's retort, because Mike I believe holds a different opinion than you.
Yeah.
Episode 1 Racer is getting dropped on PS4 and Switch.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how much it costs or when it's coming out, but since you're such an
The best Star Wars
enormous
game.
Phantom Menace fan, that game is going to be available for you to purchase. It's probably
wait. Are we talking the Nintendo 64? They're remastering it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the Switch.
Let's buy it.
Switch and PS4.
Let's race.
It'll be perfect. You won't be able to talk to each other while you race online.
I'm going to be so excited.
All right, Michael, you have a different opinion about the prequels.
So
I think I have one in the middle. So I want to have you two go
too.
first, and then I'll bring it home.
I I think both are riddled and marred with problems. I think from directing, from cinematography, from acting, from sound effects, from visuals, the prequels are worst in every single category by far. When it comes to story, and this is Brian's big point, is the story is better. One, it's easy when you have essentially the carbon copy of what you want to be there for you, and you have written material in books and novels and comics there to give you kind of a landscape of what you want to do. Two, we have talked about this 100 times. The story for the prequel is not good.
It is.
It is.
They just didn't
Your
execute
Honor,
it well.
We gave him
the
his time. I
story's
would
good.
like my time.
Yeah.
The story's good. They didn't execute it well. The story is.
Then it's not good.
It
then
is
the story's
good.
not good. This. Go ahead. What, Jason? What would you like to say?
The story is good in spots. The overall story and the way you got from A to B is not super linear and is kind of iffy. So I'll talk more. I have some things I want to say about that, so I won't get into it. But
so that's
the story. I don't
yes.
think the story's better. I think that they're both flawed.
They are absolutely flawed. Now, the problem with the new sequels, it is Kathy's fault, right? Is that her name?
Kathleen
I'm sorry.
Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy.
It's all Kathleen's fault, right? She did not commit. She knew these two people had different ideas, and she let it happen. Now, if I look at any individual one film by itself, it tells a better story in that film versus the prequels. If I look at 1 and 3, or I'm sorry,
7 and 9.
7 and 9. I don't know why I said 1, 3. 7 and 9. I have a pretty cohesive story that makes sense. I think we can all agree. And if you look at 9, like, and not in any of the films before that, to the prequels, not the originals, but the 7, 8, and then the prequels 1, 2, 3. In 9, like, there were times where I'm like, I'm at the edge of my seat. Like, I also had, in 7 until Leia, in 8 when she comes back to life. Like, don't tell me you didn't have a tear in your eye when Leia died, right? Like,
when in The Last Jedi, or in
She didn't die in the last Jedi.
Well, I'm sorry. That moment when she was spaced.
Let me tell you something. When she
Like-
was spaced
like,
and I
there
was in
was
the theater, the audience was laughing.
Bullshit.
I swear.
They might have been laughing when she came back.
Super.
They were laughing
But not-
when she twitched and started flying through the
Yeah,
universe.
yeah,
But not when she initially got sucked
When
out.
she
of the,
got sucked out, like,
It
and
was like
then
a-
when she died, and then when she actually died, teared up. The prequels never did that to me. I never had an emotional attachment. Maybe because I knew what was going to happen to the characters. I didn't know about Qui-Gon, and when he didn't care, right? Padme, I didn't care.
Why
had
didn't you
an
care about
emotional
Qui-Gon? That was an emotional death. That was a good fight and
Nothing
emotional.
compared to it because of the acting, because of the build-up, because of the storytelling. Nothing in the prequels gave me that emotional jar, that excitement. The new trilogy did that, and as bad as the storytelling is overarching, like from a cohesive 1, 2, 3, yeah, it's bad. But I have at least, like, in my mind, I'm like, if I take 7 and 9, like, I have a cohesive story. Things make sense.
But don't you have that with oh god, now I'm doing it.
Right, the numbers.
Don't you have it with 2 and 3?
But even then,
Isn't
the
that
story,
a cohesive story?
it still wasn't good.
Okay.
And that's the
so-
problem. Is that neither trilogy provides a very good story. It's janky, it's wonky, it's broken, doesn't make sense. But because of the cinematography, because of the acting, because of the writing, because of the live action, because of on set, because of the use of puppets, it provides this immersive environment that sucks you in so much more, and it's so elaborate in how it's done. Like, it can't compete. The prequels can't compete. It just doesn't. I can watch 9 again. I watched it again when I went back with my dad. I watched it again, and the same seeds got me on the edge of the seat. I still cried a little bit when Leia died. Maybe there's a little more emotional attachment because she passed away.
It certainly looks nicer, and it's more the cinematography and the special effects are much better, but it's lazy. I feel like a lot of hard work went into the prequels. I mean, sure, it's a slightly more predictable story. Everybody knows it's going to happen. But, we had a beginning, middle, and end. We had a story of escalation. We had new worlds that were very intricate and that were really, I feel, carefully created and crafted. And I understand that the CGI is no longer a thing, but at the time it was hot, right? It was supposedly the best special effects on the planet when he made it. It just looks like a terrible cartoon now, but I think that affects the realism and the immersiveness a little bit. And I agree with you 100%. Practical effects are absolutely the way to go. You don't do Star Wars without practical effects. Star Wars is built off of the magic of practical effects. I 100% concur. But the prequels went in a stupid direction production-wise, but just the direction of the story and the script, I don't know. I felt like they built a better world. I felt like it was the new trilogy is too much of them retreading the same ground. I mean, the Force Awakens might as well be a cover song of A New Hope, right? And then the Rise of the Skywalker basically ends the same way as Return of the Jedi. It's kind of lame to me.
They do take a lot of this. The sequel trilogy takes a lot of the same beats. And I guess here's a question I'll pose. If the prequels had the better dialogue, the better acting, and the practical effects of the sequel trilogy, if you evened them out, basically, for the decisions made that way, is the story then better?
Yes.
Is that part of what you don't like about the story of the prequels?
Yeah,
because it would make it more immersive, right? Like I'd be a little bit more kind of drawn into it, but the story is still we have to take them at face value because okay, if the prequels had everything that the new sequels did and the new sequels had everything the prequels had, then I guess you have the same movie, right?
Yeah, I guess, but one is a decision that you could have feasibly made, right? The decision to say, well, we're not doing CGI, we're doing practical effects, which they did, to be fair, try with Yoda in episode 1 before they remastered it, and he looked like dog shit.
Yeah.
I think it's not apples to oranges because you're right. You could do that, but could you have written a better story for the the sequel trilogy? Yes. So I understand what you're saying. It's not like a linear comparison.
Correct. And the problem is the decisions made for the prequels were cognitive decisions, and they were like, yeah, let's do this. I like it. We're going to keep doing this. Right? Oh, the writing's perfect. Oh, the acting sounds great. Oh, the CGI, love it. The story problems that happened with the second sequel, Abrams and Johnson went in there like, I told them what I wanted to do. I'm going to do this. And then Abrams comes back. It's like, well, they messed everything up, so I have to try to correct course in a 3-hour film, the best of my abilities. And he does that with things that were out of their control.
Course. He crashes the plane.
With things out of their control, they do the best they can to correct course and make a cohesive story. So each independent film has a good story within it. The overarching story of the second sequels, yes, it is not good.
I just feel that
but
nerds
that's out
everywhere...
of their control versus the prequels where it was a cognitive decision like, yep, that acting is great. Yep, that writing is perfect.
I don't know that anyone ever thought it was
exactly
great.
What we needed.
Listen, nerds everywhere owe the prequel trilogy an apology, in my opinion.
And here's where I'll jump in because I'm going to straddle both of your arguments a little bit. I believe I truly believe that I was far too harsh on the prequels. I don't think that they're they're gems of cinema. I don't necessarily even think that they're better than the sequel trilogy. But what the sequel trilogy showed me is that this shit ain't fucking easy.
No.
Like, nobody's doing it like George did it back in the day. Even George doing it in the 90s isn't doing it the same as George doing it in the 70s, right? Like, he fucked up his own prequels in a lot of ways. So we're going and expecting, okay, well, all of these people who have been involved 0% have nothing in all of this, no skin in the game, so to speak, right? We expect them to go back and do vintage George or in 77. Like, no, like it wasn't likely to happen if George couldn't recreate his own magic, the man who pulled it out of his own brain. Are we going to get something of equal value out of the sequel trilogy? And I think that anyone who thought that, which I, not secretly, but
I think we all did.
Deep down, everybody wants that,
Yeah.
right? You want to recreate the magic because the original trilogy also has its faults, right? Like we're talking Ewoks dying from sticks and rocks, or stormtroopers getting killed by Ewoks with sticks and rocks.
People complain about the Knights of Ren, and then you look at Boba Fett. It is the same.
Boba Fett had the worst treatment of any character in the movies that you could probably mention.
At least the Knights of Ren actually
they had an actual fight sequence.
Fought. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Boba Fett, all right, is the best thing that Disney has that has been untapped, in my opinion, right? Dude, come on.
Yeah.
This is the most beloved Star Wars character, perhaps with the exception of Darth Vader and Han Solo, I feel. I think that's a fair statement. Boba Fett is beloved. Everyone loves Boba Fett. He has the coolest costume of all of them. That's why he's so popular. And I know he had a short showing, but he lived outside of the films. And I think that Disney ought to wise up. And they ought to give me a Boba Fett Escapes from the Sarlacc Pit movie.
And they may still. There was a Boba Fett project that got, I don't know if it got shelved or canceled, but it was out there, right? And there's some things in Mandalorian that we won't mention because someone hasn't watched it yet. But
oh my god,
whose knows?
Grandma hasn't seen the Mandalorian?
And in a movie about a Mandalorian, there's room to potentially bridge that somewhere if he lives. Yes. Right. Yes. So how does he live? Then you tell the story. It's all possible.
So to go back to what you were saying,
yes,
is that nobody's been able to reproduce it.
Yeah.
And that's why I also think what you see happening, the carbon copies in the sequels, is like George effed up doing what he did. We gotta play it safe.
Yeah, he went too far from the blueprint.
Yeah, we got to bring people back to trust us.
Yeah, but then they did it 3 movies in a row, and now it's over. And it's like, well, you got people to kind of trust you, but now you're not making movies anymore. These movies are over.
Would you not say, I know, I get it's not the original, but The Force Awakens, did you not get like, oh yeah, I'm kind of, I even complained a bit about how it was like, oh my God, it's A New Hope.
Yep.
But even then, I was still like, there's something here.
It was very engaging. It was well done. It just borrowed too many story points from A New Hope.
Absolutely. But we talked about this a lot. They needed to bring people's trust back. So that there's the blueprint. Sure. Regain people's trust back. Everybody's ramped up. And again, outside forces like, all right, Abrams out. Come on, Rian Johnson, you're in. Rian Johnson's like, I don't want to do anything Abrams was doing. The groundwork he laid, I'm doing my own thing. And it derailed everything. I think if you have Abrams stick to this, I think you have you take 9, break that up, you have an amazing story there.
So I guess here's my thing, and I'll go on record as saying I really liked Last Jedi. and then I've watched it number of times since, and I like it less. I don't dislike it, but name one thing for me that if you just went, like you said, 7 to 9, that you needed to get out of 8. And that's not a dig. That's just that's a legitimate question. You
holding a big 0.
You have a little of Kylo, right? You have a little of the Kylo Ray thing that they played up in 9. You needed somewhere. Did you need a whole movie to explore that? Probably not. What else in 8 was like so necessary? Because as far as I'm concerned, Luke shouldn't have been in it anyway. He didn't do a goddamn thing.
Oh, and he disappointed me and broke my heart is what he did. That's what he did. He came back a milk-drinking fool.
They retrained Rey in 9.
Which is more valuable. You're showing a female character learning the Force from another female character. What is more contemporary Disney than that? Right?
And it was a great training scene. It was really cool.
Yeah, we don't need Luke.
So cool.
Luke is old fucking news. Leia's got this shit too. Here we go.
And can you imagine 8 is what the real 8 is in the first part? Rey's like, I failed training. I just can't do this. And she that's where she goes off on her own to
use the dagger and look through other stuff
to find her parents. Like I can't be a Jedi. I need to find my parents. This is more important to me. That's 8, right? Like then you have her and Leia and building up this relationship of the Force is all around you and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I liked about Ryan Johnson's interpretation of the Force is that it was not lineage. And me and you talked about this, and we were both excited that he was taking it away from
midichlorians.
We say it midichlorians. They didn't talk about it, but when you talk about lineage, that is what we're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, anybody could be the Force. You have the kid who moved the broom.
Yeah.
The kid.
He didn't have to be somebody's kid.
Never referenced again. Never referenced again. And that was so cool, right? That's where the power of the rebellion is. Common people.
So let me ask you
that's
this.
the one thing I hated Abrams doing. It's like, nope, you have to be
a Palpatine, a Kenobi, or a Skywalker. That's it.
That's lame. I agree with you guys. Let me ask you this. So that's the one thing, Michael, it sounds like that's the one thing that you would change about the sequel trilogy. So what one thing would we all change about the sequel trilogy? We know what Michael would change. Jason, you could change one thing about the sequel trilogy. What are you changing? One thing.
I mean, I changed a lot. I got rid of 8, split 9 into 2, brought Ryan Johnson. Anybody can be a Jedi.
All right. So if you're Jason, if you're gonna play God like Michael, what are you gonna change? What one thing are you gonna change?
Honestly, I would change Ryan Johnson into Jar Jar Abrams and have him take it all the way through. You want to bring Ryan Johnson on as a consultant, sort of like Lawrence Kasdan. You know what I mean? Like he really shaped the way that Empire turned out. But it was still George's shit because George would be like, we're not doing that.
Right.
And that is the sort of overarching control that Disney didn't keep a close enough eye on and let him just do whatever he wants. That movie is too long.
Yeah.
It has things you don't need. And I've gone on record as saying, I liked some of the things that you don't need. I liked that they didn't succeed, right? The whole Canto Bright casino thing. I liked that was for nothing, that they got to the end of it and they were like, well, the good guys don't always win, motherfuckers. We sold you down the river. You just wasted all that fucking time. Like, that's a good thing in a show, but you can't spend 45 minutes of my movie doing that.
Yeah.
I like the concept. I just didn't like it in that format.
And they ruined them failing to be
by him still Finn still beats Phasma again.
They failed them to succeed. Oh, they failed, but they failed because they had to get to where they needed to.
Right. That's how they end up in the very specific time and place they need. So I guess my thing is I feel like, and this is all just playing maybe ifs and whatever history, but if JJ sets the stage with 7, right? He sets a groundwork. He then gets a little bit more off base in 8, however he would have handled 8. And then 9, he's gained everyone's trust. He doesn't have to do anything like what it was before. That's the thing I would change. I don't think it was smart to give total control directorially to a completely separate person. All 3 of them they gave Rian Johnson his own trilogy after this. They gave initially Benioff and what's his nuts from fucking Game of Thrones their own trilogy. They didn't say, hey, you can direct one of 3 movies coming up. You know what I mean? Like, it should have just been him all the way through.
You know why?
For better or for worse, just for continuity's sake.
You know why you bring Rian Johnson on 8 and 9 is to help Abrams bring in the lore. Because you have to give him credit. Rian Johnson knows what he's talking about. He understands the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Abrams did not. That's why 7 is a carbon copy. It did what it needed to. Abrams, keep directing, because we know you can direct. We know you can make a story. We know you can make an environment, a universe. But here's Rian Johnson to tell you how Star Wars works.
Yeah.
That's how that partnership should work, like you said, Jason, but it didn't, and now we're stuck arguing what's better.
Well, let me tell you, if I could change one thing, I would not bring the Emperor back. That was the weakest, stupidest climax to the whole thing that I've ever seen. So
it wasn't even the Emperor. It
was his clone.
It's a clone. Rey's father isn't even Palpatine.
Right.
Rey's father is a non-perfectly genetic matched clone
of Palpatine
to the Emperor. Like,
so lame.
But of course you don't know that. The movie would have you understand that it is just the Emperor who's managed to survive all this time. Well, that's thing you have to learn somewhere else.
Let me tell you, they had the perfect setup, right? They've laid the groundwork in their films. You know, we've got a prequel trilogy where young Anakin's talking to Palpatine, and Palpatine's telling him about his master, the first Sith, Darth Sidious. So he's canon. We know of him from the EU. He's in the new books for the new sequel trilogy. Plagueis, I'm sorry. He's Darth Sidious. Wait, it's Darth Plagueis. Yeah. Palpatine's Darth Sidious. Darth Plagueis is the first Sith. Whatever. All right,
there you go.
So this is written in canon, right? Plagueis is in canon. So then we go to the Sith world in the climax of the goddamn finale. And you're telling me you can't give me Darth Plagueis, the Jedi who in Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones or whichever one was confirmed to be able to cheat death? You can't bring that character to me at the climax of all of it when you're at the most evil place in the world. You can't bring me the first Sith. How much would it make sense that he would be there? It would make all the sense in the world that he would be there. And he's not there, and I get a repeat bullshit ending, and I don't get any good long-standing villains, and I don't get any, reward for the lore that you've built up over the last 30 years. I don't get anything. You literally make me bare my chest and then you fucking take a shit on it. That's how I felt when I walked out of the theater. Excuse me.
Although I will give them credit for not making Snoke Plagueis and not making Snoke some fucking like, oh look, it's this guy that you saw over here.
I'd have preferred that.
Oh no, we don't need more of that. And that's the problem with the prequels, is the prequels was every single thing you see has to be something. It's got to be connected to something down the line. It's got to be important. Even if it's a throwaway reference, nothing just exists. It's just, everything's got to be something. Now, the prequels, I hold in the same esteem now as I do the sequel. And I think that while the special effects didn't age particularly well, the way that he approached the movies in the end, when if people go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row.
Wrong order, but okay.
Well, we're not talking Tarantino order. We're talking regular order. I think that they'll look at the prequels and go, you know what? That was a pretty good story. And it made sense. And, there wasn't a lot to hate about. I think that it gets shit on for Jar Jar, but Phantom Menace, Return of the Jedi got shit on for Ewoks, and, there's always something, right? So I think that if you go back, you look at Attack of the Clones, and you go, well, George Lucas has this interesting thing he does where the second of his movies is always very different than the first. Empire, very different from A New Hope. Temple of Doom, way different than Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
That's true.
So he has this, he introduces this weird, like, love story on one side, pulp noir, like crime, like detective thing on the other side. And it's like, while that is hands down my least favorite Star Wars film, no, that's not true. Solo's my least favorite. Second least favorite Star Wars film. I give him credit for trying something different. You know, it was just like a completely different, it was like way out of his fucking comfort zone.
Yeah.
And he tried it, and it was okay. It just missed the mark, but it was worth trying. And I think that's the same thing that I find so endearing about Rian Johnson's movie. I just don't like that it was sandwiched in between two J.J. Abrams movies. I liked that he fucking swung big. He just didn't connect. And that's the same thing that happened in Attack of the Clones. George swung big in something that's real different, and then it just didn't quite land.
Agreed.
So I don't think either of them are worse than the others anymore. I used to, when I saw 7 and 8, I was like, you know what? These are better than the prequels. And then I saw 9, and 9 wasn't bad, but the 3-story sandwich that it made together was not better to me than the prequels. So I think that the original trilogy is number 1. The other ones are 2A and 2B.
Breaking apart, they're fighting each other for slots.
That's right. All the movies filter in somewhere across, but it's not a 3 versus 3 sort of thing.
It's fascinating.
But we can all agree that you can get rid of the Phantom Menace and still have a cohesive story of the prequels, and it doesn't matter. Right?
I love the Phantom Menace.
It's so true.
I love the Phantom Menace. I don't know why I love the Phantom Menace. I have good memories of seeing the Phantom Menace. It's a great story. It's got great music. It has an excellent poster. Stop hating on the Phantom Menace. Apologize.
Pod racing.
Pod racing is awesome.
The Boonta Eve Classic, guys. That's another big swing, and that big swing worked. That big swing, the little race thing.
You got Jabba on there. You got other huts on there,
and all sorts of shit. Right? That was cool.
I thought so.
And I'm not saying it's my favorite part of the prequel trilogy, but it was fine in that film. In like the universe they're building, where they're like, hey, look, here's some Gungans underwater. Hey, look, Anakin's planet wasn't just some weird dust ball. It also had races. Cool, whatever. I don't care. That's fine.
Awesome. Love it.
I don't have a problem. So Brian will definitely be buying Episode 1 Racer as it hits the Nintendo Switch. Michael will not, because
I will get it.
Michael will not.
First of all, I will, because
listen, if you get the Racer game before you watch The Mandalorian, you should feel shame.
First of all, Racer on Nintendo 64 was a great.
Well, you got to buy a Nintendo Switch first, Michael, and they're sold out.
It's on PS4 because
you're not going to play with me and Jason
because developers realize better systems are the way to release games on.
Good Lord.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. We will in the future pick up on some of these lost threads that we came across along the way, where we almost got sidetracked into something wild and long. We will bring those back in a future episode. So if you'd like to suggest a topic, go ahead and leave a comment. But until next time, I am Jason.
I'm Mike.
I'm Brian.
And we will see you next time.